What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. I am Scott Leese, one of your two co-hosts here, along my good friend and partner and co-founder in the Surf and Sales Summit. There's a couple tickets left. I think 5 tickets left for our events this November. Check it out at surfandsales.com. How's it going, Richard? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I finally am over my horrible cough, as you know, I had for 3 weeks from a story we won't relate to everybody. But unfortunately, I see you now have had an accident, so I hope I didn't pass over the bad will towards you. So
I took a soccer ball to the face and have a disgusting bruise on the bridge of my nose now. So it's been a great talking point so far this week. Everybody just instantly builds rapport by ripping me to pieces. It's been great.
Right. It's an icebreaker. It's an icebreaking nose breaker. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an icebreaker.
It looks like a baseball hit you. I'm happy to hear
soccer ball.
Okay.
Soccer ball. Yeah. That voice you heard right there was one of the two co-founders of a killer new company called Hyperbound. And you're talking to Atul and Sri Harsha, also known as Sai. Welcome, guys, to the Surf and Sales podcast, man. Thanks for being here.
We're really happy to be here, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. We've been looking forward to this one.
All right. First things first. I always have to go first, Richard.
I know.
If I do the intro, I go first. I did the intro, I go first. That's the rule. Okay.
Whatever.
I have to ask.
Pinocchio.
Nothing to do with Hyperbound, but I have heard that one of these two guys, and Richard, you have to guess which person. One of these two guys has dozens of professional grade music videos that are available on YouTube. The question for you, Richard, is which one of these guys is it? Is it Sai or Atul?
Wonder.
I think it's Sai.
Oh God. How'd you know?
Because anybody who takes their name and translates it to Sai, that's like a cool rock star name.
Like that's the first time I've heard that one.
So
but pretty good reasoning. Yeah.
Can you tell us a real quick 30-second story of your singing career?
Oh my God. My singing career. Well, there is no career. It's just
I was gonna say it's like he's not quitting his day job yet.
I wish. I mean, I will be honest, it is a dream job. I mean, I would love to quit everything and just sing and just do that. But no, I've been singing for a long time, man. Since basically I would say 2nd grade, 3rd grade, pretty much. I've been singing, like I'd sing Indian music, I sang American music, like 4 or 5 different languages as well. So
wow,
it's just something I love to do. I have a mic like yourselves that I love to just bring out every time I want to sing and record some music. So yeah, that's what I do in my free time.
Wait, so I just want to say 5 languages you could sing in, which also means you 5. Which then means you can speak 5 languages.
That's not true. So that's the tricky. So I can sing in 5 different languages. I can't understand all of them either, but I can read the English lyrics written in that language. And
that is amazing.
I know.
This is fascinating. You should build an AI tool for
songs in my native language, and he's singing it perfectly, and he doesn't know what any of the words mean.
I don't know what anything means.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Atul, you should just write some lyrics down that are completely inappropriate and tell them to sing it, and then record that.
Richard, I should mention. Do you know how Atul and I met?
You told me when we first met months ago, but I can't. You were both working at the same place. No, I don't remember exactly. I have a couple of stories.
Oh, funny little story. Atul and I actually met in choir class in high school.
Really?
Oh,
we did choir together. We were both tenor ones in choir, and we were going on like trips, and we did all kinds of events together, and we were partners for a couple musicals that we did and stuff like that. And here we are. Never thought we'd be doing a startup together, but it started singing. So maybe that's where the career started.
Yeah. Well, why don't you guys tell us what Hyperbound is all about, and give people some context for what you're working on.
Yes, I want to take it away with our one-liner.
Yeah, I mean, Hyperbound is basically the whole idea is we're trying to scale sales training for large enterprises, right? Like, let's say you have a team of 300, 400 sales reps. How do you get every single rep on the same page, delivering the same exact message, right? And standardize the sales process, right? And we basically have like an AI that your reps can do role plays with, right? So you guys have probably done role play training, a ton of this, right? But it's always very awkward. It's not scalable. We built a way to have like hundreds of reps do this on their own time with an AI instead. And yeah, it's been resonating really well with the audiences out there, because I think especially right now, people are seeing that with the more and more competitors in SaaS, it's becoming harder and harder to stand out. And that means your reps just need to level up their game and be better. So
yeah,
that's a lot.
So I remember meeting you guys, right? Like shout out to Pete Kazanji for introducing us. One of my favorite things I did this year was working with you guys at Databricks and doing some coaching and then testing this tool, right? Yeah. And I even role played with it myself beforehand and with them. And literally, what was that? Maybe February of this year, March. Mm-hmm. And it's now, it's almost September. And in February and March, it was like, holy cow, this is amazing. Now it feels like, it feels like the space has gotten really crowded in 5 months. Has it gotten crowded? And I'm curious as to someone like both of you, because I know your backgrounds, your technical backgrounds, where you start at that space and then holy cow, 5 months later, there's a whole bunch of other people nipping at our heels, right? Like, how do you adjust for that as a startup founder? Or don't you? You just be like heads down.
So the first part of that is just so exciting, right? The fact that, you're knowing that you're tapping into a space that everyone is excited to follow suit for, like that's how you know you're solving a real problem. In fact, if you're the only company in a space and it's been a couple months, you're probably not working on something many people care about, is what the Y Combinator folks like to say.
Sure.
So, we're honestly really happy that a bunch of these folks are joining the conversations, and it's made our lives interestingly easier. We actually have a lot of deals that land in our laps now that wasn't the case in February.
Yeah. I think the thing is, like, because these other competitors are coming in, they are helping us create this category together, right? Like now we have enterprise companies coming to us. It used to be us outbounding them. Now they're coming to us and they're like, hey, we are looking for an AI sales role-playing tool. And we are exploring these 3 competitors. And now it's just a matter of showing who has a better product. And, we've done that time and time again.
And we've been working
let me ask you a question about that though. And let me challenge you a little bit on this, because the better product rarely wins. So it's not just about having a better product. It's about other things as well, right? So how do you think about which things to prioritize in this early part of your journey, right? And that's a question that I talk to founders about every single day. Do we focus on the product? Do we focus on the customers we do have and making them successful? Do we focus on go-to-market stuff? Well, how do you think about the sort of hierarchy of all these competing priorities at your stage?
Absolutely. And I think we take a lot of inspiration from Chris Orlow on this one, right? Like we totally are with you there, Scott, right? It's not about having the better product. It's about having a better understanding of the problem and being able to speak to it, at least at this stage where we are. Being able to speak to the problem with certainty and experience and data is the main thing that gets our customers over the line. And it's what has helped us win a lot of really tight competitive deals as well. So it's something we're still actively figuring out, of course. We are new to the space, and the space itself is new. We're creating it.
I think I like the way Atul described it. It's like, who has the better understanding of the customer and their pain points, and who can cater best to that? That's what I mean when I say a better product. I mean, someone that truly understands why a customer is coming in and wants to implement your tool, right? Because there's a lot of tools out there that just build features for the sake of building features. But then you look at the usage and see what people are actually using. And it's usually, you'll find that they're using 1 feature out of the 10 features you just built.
That's right. They love that one thing.
Yes.
Exactly. And so it's really like the hardest part of the founder is identifying what is that one thing and what is the best way to make sure that it's easy for the customer to do that one thing, right? And so
I would actually add that one of the hardest things for the founders is to shut up and not talk about the other 9 things and actually just focus on the one thing that they want. They don't have to love all 10 things in order to buy your product and be a good customer. And that's really hard for a lot of founders to kind of comprehend, right? They kind of sell themselves out of deals sometimes because of that. Yeah. Richard, what do you think about the fact that they are arguably, debatably, that they are potentially scaling you out of a job, my friend, as a corporate sales trainer?
No, we actually have some conversations happening on the back end where they can actually scale me up.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
But it's a question of, if a client hires me to come in and do the training part, right? And it's customized for them. Can they then have a coaching bot of Richard that reinforces what I have taught them, that coaches them along those ways, right? So there is always going to be that. Like, I think about what I can't remember. I think it was Tim Cook, not Steve Jobs, but I think he said, when they first came out with the iPad, they're like, well, why would you do this? It's going to cannibalize, your phone sales. And his first reaction is, well, there's a bunch of tablets out there already cannibalizing it, so I might as well cannibalize myself, right? If I'm going to lose, if I'm not going to sell something, I might as well sell them something else, right? Yeah. And I feel like that's a very similar approach here in that regards. And frankly, look, Scott, I'm older than you. I get to retire sooner than you, so that's part of my exit strategy.
We'll see about that. You'll always be older than me, but you might not get out before I do. We'll see.
That's true too. That's true. But
there will forever be a Richard bot.
Yes, there will always, right? I keep telling my kids that, and they're like, I don't want to talk to you after you're dead. And I'm like, oh, yes, you will. I'm like, yeah, you will. Trust me. But so I'm curious to know, one of the things, it's come up a lot more recently with AI, is that people are building these amazing tools, right? And I know your tool fairly intimately, so I can understand why this might not happen, but I am curious if you think about it. So many of these AI tools come out as a product or service, but if they're not careful, they just turn into a feature of something else, right? And so do y'all worry about that? Do you think about that in terms of growth and roadmap to make sure that, Salesforce doesn't just go and build this internally kind of a thing, which hopefully they'd maybe buy you, but, how do y'all view that? How do you make sure you're not just becoming a feature?
Well, without giving too much away, we are not concerned about that. We've got some things on the roadmap that we are so excited for. But instead of answering this question directly, just stay tuned for some press releases. I think I'll answer your question there.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Not the answer I know you're hoping for, but
that's how you know you're in a crowded space, when the guys don't want to say what they're up to, because they're like, there's 47 competitors listening to this fucking podcast.
I mean,
now.
And here's the thing, man. I mean, that's with any space, that's the case. There's always going to be the big player. Salesforce has built everything under the sun, right? Why doesn't everyone just use Salesforce Pardo? Why do people still use Marketo? Why do they use MailChimp? Like, I mean, Salesforce is it's spread too thin. At the end of the day, their core product is the CRM, right? It's what Scott was saying earlier. Focus on what you.
It's coming from a guy who used to work at Salesforce.
I used to work at Salesforce. I literally was an engineer at Salesforce. I saw what it's like. Trust me, it's good.
We get it. So, y'all have known each other for a very long time, right? And to the point that I would assume you're family as much as you are friends. How do you avoid, beating the shit out of each other when you guys disagree? Because at some point that's not always easy, right? Scott and I figured it out, and I told Scott he had to move to Austin. He couldn't live in the Bay Area anymore.
Yeah.
So, but how do you navigate? Because it's not easy. Like, everybody wants to go to business, and it's nice when you have someone you can trust wholeheartedly, like the two of you do, like Scott and I do. But there's still those friction moments. How do y'all handle that as human beings?
It's like precisely the fact that we are so close is why we can get away with not beating each other up every day. We fight every day around one thing or the other, but we always like, keep it like towards the same goal that we're both moving towards. Right? I think we're really good at understanding that we have the same common priorities at the end of the day, and we're just tackling the same problem in different ways due to our perspectives on it. So yeah, and I think just being a little analytical about it is what's kept us going. It's going to continue to keep us going. If we weren't so close, we would, there's like motives that come into play, but I know exactly what he's thinking. He knows exactly what I'm thinking. So
I also think it's just like we both bring something to the table and we acknowledge that. And it's like just having that mutual respect, knowing like what we're good at, what our strengths are, and just like, backing down when maybe this is not your strength, maybe it's the other person's strength, and like knowing where you should be making a decision versus someone else. That type of stuff is always good to have. But at the end of the day, it's just mutual respect. I mean, I respect the hell out of this guy. Otherwise, he wouldn't be my co-founder.
And likewise, so
it always starts there, the respect.
Yeah. What's been the biggest surprise in, jumping into this AI space, sales training world? What are the things that you're like, oh, I never thought about it that way?
I would say the biggest surprise so far, and it's a hot take, is how badly the AI SDR products have been performing. Interestingly, we were in the space as well. It was actually the product that we were working on before this one. Thought that they would take off, that there was going to be a lot of customer demand for them, and there is for both of those things. But the thing that's not working out for most of the AI SDR products is retention. None of these AI SDR companies are able to retain their customers, and no one is having really truly happy or satisfied customers. That part has been a little very interesting to me about the SDR AI space here.
But why is that surprising you though? That's what I want to know, is why is it surprising?
I mean, I think the largest part to this that took us a little bit aback is how little of a performance difference it makes to go from a 70% of perfect email to a 90% of perfect email, or how little of a performance difference it makes, but how dependent everything is on prospecting, right? So a lot of these ASDR products really drop the ball on prospecting, because how can you need a human deciding strategy there, and focus on the messaging side of things where they aren't really creating an impact.
So are you saying that, I just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying that not only is the lift from a 70% good email to 90% good email a challenge, even with AI, it also isn't yielding better results.
Yeah, essentially.
You're not necessarily getting more meetings.
Yeah, you'll get one more meeting for the tremendous amount of effort you're going to put in from that, growth, but it's not going to be worth it in terms of cost or price for you. So yeah, it's been a little nuanced, a little interesting for us to experience.
The other part that I think is really interesting that you said too is that, you can have these tools do all this, but it's missing the human strategy component.
That's what
expand on that, because I think that that's the best way it's been articulated to me, is that yes, it can write the email, it can send the email, it can build the cadence, but the strategy is missing.
So here's what I think, right? And this is what we're facing with selling our product to every day, is it's funny when you go to a sales leader, someone that hasn't sold in a long time, that hasn't been on the front lines for a long time, right? They've been in leadership. They start to lose touch with what's actually getting them the sale at the end of the day, right? They think, okay, if we just get a better data provider, if we just get a better sequencer, if we just personalize our emails more, we're just going to see the numbers go up and everything's going to be good. But at the end of the day, Richard, you know this better than anyone else. After everything's said and done, you have to have a conversation with the client, and you still have to handle those objections. You still have to get past all their concerns and close the deal, right? And that part is where a lot of leaders, I feel forget that there's still a human component to it, right? You could do everything. You could have all the prep in the world, all the research in the world, get to the discovery demo, but then you still have to talk to them and still sell them on the freaking product. And that's where I feel like a lot of companies fail. Like they don't have a way of even assessing that, right? If I have 200 people, how do I know, like every call that my rep does, how do I know that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing? Right. And that is like part of what we're trying to educate people on is like, let's get you visibility into what your team isn't doing right now on those calls, right? We know they have the data, they're using Zoom, that's like the best, ZoomInfo is the best data provider out there. Let's just face it, you're not going to go find a better one. You already have the best sequencer on the planet. Now, what's the next step to that? Make your reps better at delivering the message, the value prop, right? So I think that's the gap that we're seeing between leadership and the frontline managers who really get this because they're the ones dealing with this every day. And so we're trying to educate people and bridge that gap a little bit with Hyperbound.
Yeah, that's so Scott. So the good news is that that's why my job's not going away. And but still the component too of what's not going to get replaced, right? Like there's this massive concern. And let me ask you guys this question, then I'll shut up.
Well, what isn't going to get replaced? What is not going to get replaced? In what time frame are we talking about?
Right. So if the SDR tools, the top of the funnel tools, are not sticking at the AI level, does that mean the SDRs are not going to be worked out of their job faster? Or does it just mean businesses are going to keep doubling down, waiting for the technology to get better?
I think that there are certain SDR type functions that will eventually be replaced by AI. And like, let's face it, I mean, they're the admin back office tasks that, no human should be doing anyway. But what this means though, is that SDRs, like the skill threshold for an SDR who joins an org is now a lot higher than it used to be. Right, like SDRs they're already a crazy skilled position, but a lot of the stuff that anyone can do is going to go away. Right, an SDR is going to be like halfway to an AE now when they join. It is going to be like all the easier tasks are going to be accomplished with AI.
Yeah, I mean, look at prospecting. I don't know if you've used Clay, Richard. Like Clay, one person can generate like high intent leads with just like a couple clicks of a button on Clay now.
Yeah.
Right. Normally, that would have taken an SDR like multiple days to go like research all those leads, find all those intent signals themselves. Now you can basically automate all of that, right? Which is, I think that's the type of stuff that's definitely going to get automated away. You're going to have one SDR doing all the prospecting. Everyone else is going to be selling.
Right? Scott, what do you think about that?
Everyone else is going to be selling. I think that's probably true. I just think the team sizes will be very small by comparison. So I think the initial reaction when you hear everybody will be selling is like, no way, that's not possible, because we're thinking in terms of a couple 100-person companies with 25 engineers and 16 CS people and 14 marketing people, right? But I think that's going away, and I think it's going to go away at a faster and faster clip. Behind closed doors, nobody's going to say this publicly. I will. Behind closed doors, all the VCs care about is
money.
When are two guys going to make $1 billion company, or when is one person going to make $1 billion company?
Sam Altman has a bet on I think he has a bet with his brother on who the first one-person unicorn is going to be.
Yeah, that's all they care about. They're not interested in investing in products or companies or people that have plans to build the way that things have been built previously. So I do think that I agree with that. I also think that we have to conceptualize what the word selling means in a different way than we used to. It does not mean that Atul and Sai are going to be making 100 cold calls a day. There's other touch points that are now equally as important, if not more important. There's other modalities and methods and channels, for lack of a better word. So I can envision it going that way. Absolutely.
Hey, it's exciting.
It's exciting if you are brave and embrace change. And it's absolutely terrifying if you are rooted in your old historic ways and you really love status quo and inertia, right? Which, if you haven't run into that yet, enjoy when you start getting away from your low-hanging fruit and start trying to move up market a little bit. And you talk to these people like, listen, guys, we've been doing this business for 40 ways this year. I don't need your fucking tool, right? Those conversations will be great. I want to know, I'm going to ask Richard a question again, and then I'm going to ask the follow-up question. Richard.
Yes.
One of these two guys.
Oh, it's like a trivia game.
One of these two. Yeah. This is not just educational. This is also entertainment. Okay.
Yeah.
One of these two guys once started a vape company. True or false? True or false? True or false? That's
totally true.
Which one was it?
Well, what am I going to get for getting all these things right? First of all, what's my prize?
My undying love and devotion.
That's not good enough. I'm going to go with Atul on this one.
Yeah, that's right. So now, Atul, tell me about what you've learned from running a company, from this vape company, that you are applying to how you run Hyperbound.
Oh, okay. So a little bit of context on this to make myself seem a little better.
Yes.
No judgment. No judgment.
There's no nicotine in the vape. We were putting. Have you heard of Vicks? Like the
Vicks, like vapor rub Vicks?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were putting like.
Oh yeah. That's literally when Richard is so old that is what medicine is. Actually, they just put Vicks on everything.
That's what I used to do growing up.
You got an injury, you broke your leg, put some Vicks on that thing. You got a cough, put some Vicks on your head.
There's actually some in our bathroom cabinet.
Of course there is. Continue.
But yeah, we were putting like Vicks essentially in a jewel pod, and like that was the company. So like we were actually about to raise funding for this as well. So I learned a lot about going through the VC process, getting like learning what it means like to get your pitch and documents in order to raise capital. But also I learned what it's like to sell a product that you haven't yet actually built, right? Because that like user interview journey when you're selling something that you don't yet have is like the best way. Like sales is actually the best way to conduct research from your customers, especially those early days. And it's like Shai has a lot of similar experiences with startups that he's had before this as well. And it really formed the backbone of like what we do here. In fact, we've done a little over like 1,500 user interviews before we even started working on this concept for Hyperbound. Like just that process of selling to user research is the biggest takeaway.
Selling to user research, 1,500 interviews, you said.
Yeah, I mean,
how long did that take?
Well, do the math. Let's say each meeting is 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
750 hours.
30 minutes is a minimum.
You should have seen our calendars before we had a product. We didn't even have a product at this point, and our calendars were booked 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, including
That's what my calendar looks like. Hold on, you got to do better than that. I'm an old man, and I got that kind of calendar. Come on.
I mean, Scott, I'll tell you
750 hours. Let's say they have 12 hours of those calls a day. What's 750 divided by 12, Richard?
I don't know.
I just like exposing your bad math. The point is a lot. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of effort. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say. I mean, one thing that we're really good at, and I'm glad we were good at this early on, was just like we're relentless on the outbound, man. Like when it comes to cold emails, when it comes to like texting, and Richard can probably attest to this. I've easily sent Richard like 5 follow-ups in the past. Or if he doesn't respond, I'll just give him a call and I'm like, Richard, what's up? You're not responding to me, right?
Yes.
I've definitely done that. And it's just, we're very shameless when it comes to like cold outbound, how relentless we are. Yeah, we booked a ton of meetings. That it's funny because like a lot of people are like, oh, outbound doesn't work. I'm like, dude, we got 1,500 meetings on the calendar through pure cold outbound. Like it definitely works. You just have to be relentless, which most people
and what tool did you use to set those meetings?
No tool, manual.
I'm kidding. That was a joke.
No, I don't think anybody I don't think anybody without an agenda would say that outbound doesn't work. But I think that you'd be a fool to say outbound works as good as it did 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
I agree.
Agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
just wanted to clarify that point real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Richard.
No, I was just going to say, because time is flying and there's two of you, so we want to give you guys a chance to ask us a couple of questions. But aside from finding you at Hyperbound, where else can people get a hold of you before we let you ask us a couple of questions?
Oh, aside from Hyperbound, I mean, you can always
LinkedIn.
So our LinkedIn DMs are open. You can always shoot us. We get some interesting DMs from time to time. We frame them occasionally. Should see our wall.
Oh,
Yeah, that's always a good spot. You can email us at founders@hyperbound.ai. Like we're always happy to see.
Hyperbound.ai is good. You can even go to our website and talk to one of our bots, put in a little Easter egg. Every now and then we do listen to those conversations. And please don't flirt with the bots. We've seen that.
really? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
We've seen everything, Richard.
Wow.
Honestly,
we have seen
This is a whole other podcast.
I'm actually not surprised, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
I'm not surprised, but I'm just like, great. Just one more place for misogyny to come along, right?
What surprised us was how soon it happened. Like when we put out the public demo bots, we're like, yeah, we'll get at least like a week of calls in before that happened. I think it happened on like the 12th call or something.
It's insane. Yeah. And they didn't realize that we could listen to the calls, even though they were on our website calling our bots, which is really dumb on their part. But
oh my gosh. All right. Well, what questions can we answer for the two of you? Anything y'all want to ask?
yeah, I mean, I know you guys have been in this space for so long. I'm curious, like when it comes to sales training, Richard, like what do you think are the biggest things that you're seeing? Like I know you're going and running these you're doing training for workshops and things like that, running these training engagements, large companies. What are you noticing from leadership and from the reps themselves on how their strategy has kind of evolved over time?
Well, I think the reps are a little more open to role playing than they used to be. And I think some of that is a generational thing, right? Like I just think, I'm 55 and putting someone of my experience level into a bot is probably uncomfortable for most of them in sales. Even if you were at a Salesforce or, another large, technology company, I think there's just a discomfort there of change. I think that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that organizations want more coaching. They want this ability to coach every rep on every single call. And I also think that authenticity is one of the biggest pieces, right? It used to be about personalization. Well, now it's about authenticity, which I think is co-personalization. How do I personalize it to Scott while also sounding authentic to Richard, right? So that I don't sound like a bot, right? I tell people all the time, there's a difference between having a sales script and using it and sounding scripted. Nobody should sound scripted. Everybody uses scripts all the time. They have these little snippets in the demo. They have these little things they say when this topic comes up, but the really good people don't sound scripted when they say it.
Yeah, I remember you really drill that into the Databricks reps. I mean, that's a really good point, right? Like it's especially when you're a new rep, you're just trying to follow the script, and it's really hard to kind of make that feel natural to yourself. Yeah.
I think that'll be. Sorry, go ahead.
Atul has a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
2 for 1. It's a bonus round.
The bonus round. So another question I had for the both of you was, you all have been around to see the transition from in-person sales to remote sales, right? And how that's affected the way that reps develop. Especially you've seen a couple of the newer rounds of reps come in after this transition, now that they're onboarding at home. And I just wanted to get your take on how sustainable you think the current way of training these remote reps is, and like the performance differences you've been seeing.
It's a nuanced question, actually, that doesn't have like a soundbite of an answer, because first of all, we're not going back to the way things used to be. So everybody, whether you're getting trained or doing the training, everybody better fucking figure it out, because Nobody's signing up to go into an office 5 days a week and doing an hour and a half commute for the rest of their life. At least nobody who's like 20. I got 2 teenagers and like, why would I drive somewhere to go to work? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. That's literally how they think. So we're not going back. So then it becomes like, well, where's the burden of responsibility fall? Okay. To me, the first burden of responsibility falls with the employer to create a program of sorts that gets people up to speed on industry, product, pitch and messaging, process, culture, all this kind of stuff. It's on you. You hire me remotely. It's on you guys to integrate me and educate me in how you want things done. It's also on me, though, to do a bunch of stuff on my own to speed up and expedite that learning, because I don't have those water cooler moments anymore. I don't have the sit down in the lunchroom kind of moments anymore. I don't have the eavesdropping with as much simplicity as I'm listening to other people make their calls or whatever. So that employee has to take it upon themselves to try their best to replicate from home the kind of environment that they got in an office. And I think there's a lot of data for a while that showed remote sales teams do just as well, if not better. Now there's people coming forth with data saying remote sales teams do worse. And so my thing with data is like, we can manipulate the data to tell us any freaking story we want to tell us. So if you have a narrative and an agenda to get people back to the office, I'm pretty sure you'll find data to support that, to try to make that happen. If you're a proponent of work from home and remote work, I'm pretty sure you can find data to make that happen. But I just think I think it's not the right question. And I don't think it's the right question because I don't believe we're going back to a world where commercial real estate, it has no inventory and everybody's back in an office. I don't think that's going to happen. So the right question to me is, how do we replicate in-person environments and learning opportunities in a remote first workplace? That to me is the most important question. And can it be done? Yes, it can be done. People are doing it right now. So I don't know, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, I've been training people. I mean, I've been working from home since 2013, and obviously COVID, nobody ever wanted virtual training, right? Never. And then COVID hit, and then everybody adjusted. And I have very successful teams that do this remotely. We do our training and our coaching sessions all on Zoom. I never meet them in person. And to Scott's point, that's because the companies understand they've got to do something. They then have to find the right person with the right content and the right, approach that's going to speak to their team. And then we have to drive accountability. I think the thing that's changed the most in the sales world is it's as much about the reinforcement sessions I have, not just the training sessions. So like if I were with Databricks, like if they had become a client, I would have done training, but then I would have had weeks of coaching at both a management and at a rep level after the training to make sure that that stuff goes forward. Because it's that challenge is there's this lack of accountability because nobody knows what to do or how to do it, and they're afraid to do anything. So that's the big piece I'm seeing in this training world right now. My question is around all the AI is the AI really ramping people faster than an in-person, or is it ramping them at the same pace, but maybe a little bit more efficiently, right? Does it still take a rep, 20 role plays with AI before you put them on the phone? In addition to, as opposed to the 5 that they got in the same, 2 weeks earlier, right? So does it still take the same amount of time to get them ramped? They're just better ramped in that place. And which is a good thing. So that's the part I'm always trying to pay attention to is, where is better happening, right? Everybody wants better, faster, and cheaper. And most people can only do 2 of those things at the same time. And rarely is it better. It's always faster and cheaper that people want. And I don't know that that's the right answer. So.
Yeah. To be honest, it's still a little early. If we're talking from a data perspective, like I don't have like solid numbers for you on exactly, how that works for us right now. But I can tell you one thing for sure. By the time they finish, training on something like this, they feel a lot more confident delivering the messaging than they ever would have otherwise, right? And like sometimes you can't control if a deal is going to close or not, right? It's not always up to you, right? But are you delivering the messaging better than you would have the other way around?
Yes. Yeah.
That we're 100% confident. Like we've seen that. To see that reflected in the data will take a little bit longer. I mean, we're still an early stage company. So yeah,
once you have that data, everything is going to like
change.
Yeah, blow up. It's going to, the domino effect is going to just be like, right. And it'd be like, hey, all these companies and customers of ours report like an 83%, change in reps getting fully ramped faster because they did on average 23 role plays per person. That's the sweet spot. You need to do 23 role plays inside of 30 days. Once you have data that supports all that kind of stuff,
we're getting close. It's already positive.
You'll be able to go beyond the early adopters.
And I could see that at a
crowd.
Scott, when you were at Qualia, right, where it's a faster sales cycle, that data I would bet is there. When you're talking about enterprise level sales that are 6, 12, and 18 months, you'll be able to see lagging indicators that conversations might be better, but you're not going to know about the closing part yet for a while. So I think we can make some hypotheses around that. So, but
I had a question for you guys. I mean, I just want to back up to the conversation we're having earlier about does the better product win? And Scott, you mentioned it doesn't always win, right? I'm curious, like from your perspective, we talked about like our perspective on this, but I'm curious to hear your perspective too. Like, I'm sure you've seen a million founders message you over the years, and maybe some companies were really hot at some point and then they just kind of died down. Like, what do you think was a sticking point for the companies that you did see that stuck around? What do you think was the common denominator among all of them?
The common denominator for the companies that make it?
For the companies, that like, stayed hot the entire time. They weren't just like a fluke,
Yeah. So that's a complicated question.
I'll tell you like an example, right? Just so you get where I'm coming from. Like, look at Gong versus Chorus, for example.
Yeah, perfect example.
Yeah, like Gong.
Most technical people would tell you that Chorus's product was better.
Right? But Gong won it out. So I'm curious, like, stuff like that. Like, what have you seen? Are there other examples of that? Or even in that scenario, what do you think was the...
Well, in my opinion, Gong won the sort of PR battle.
Yep.
Right? The branding battle. They had superior go-to-market sales execution. They had superior kind of guerrilla marketing, content marketing. They also did a much better job of engaging partners, people like myself, for example. It's funny you mentioned Chris Orlob. I first talked to Chris Orlob. He was like a junior level marketing person at Gong, asking me for advice on like, what the fuck do we do with this kind of thing, right? So they did a better job of reaching out to the community and getting the right kind of partners, advisors, things like that, people who had been there and done that, than Chorus, who I knew the founder of Chorus and maybe like one leader at Chorus, and nobody on that team ever made any effort to develop a relationship. Whereas Richard and I knew
we know everybody at Gong. They sponsored us.
A lot of people have left that we knew, but there's still lots of people there that we know. So that's one kind of case study, but I think that those examples can easily transfer over to, what you guys are doing versus your competitors, what XYZ.com is doing against this other competitor. Like, it's the same stuff,
And it's interesting too, because if you also, the other big one out there is, sales law versus outreach. In that instance, I think both of those companies have done a pretty good job of, you know, as they built their brands, as they went to their go-to-market strategy and all those kind of things. And it's not as hard fought as Chorus versus Gong. You know, I know Sales Loft, I think they got bought out by a PE company a couple of years ago, but which is a good exit, right?
That's
but
the other thing is by what measurement did somebody win?
Right. That's the other thing.
You can actually make the case that the Chorus guys got liquid and they've been chilling on a beach somewhere while Gong is slaving away in like a difficult market. Right. And you could make the case that Sales Loft sold at the absolute peak and Outreach is screwed, providing no liquidity to anybody who's worked there because the market's stuck.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting. There's different ways, you know, to Scott's point earlier, you can slice the data to tell the story you want. Right.
Yeah.
But guys, this has been awesome. It's good to catch up with you. I know we've got some other conversations going on the back end. But thank you guys for coming on and sharing some wisdom and knowledge on what's happening in the space.
Of course. Thank you so much, guys. You've been really instrumental. I mean, Richard too, like I'm so glad we met. It's funny the way we met too. Just
we panic called Pete.
We panic called Pete, and Pete is like, I know a guy that will do this for you guys, and he connected us with Richard.
Yeah, Scott, in 3 days, I went and presented to Databricks after talking to these guys.
Honestly, that's how more.
That's the best way it worked. That's how it should work too, by the way.
That's really top of mind for me right now, considering this contract I just sent out just wrote me back 3 pages of red lines. Yeah. And I just looked at it and wrote them back and was like, I'm going to pass. I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And I mean, Scott, speaking of relationship building and whatnot, I mean, let's do something together. I mean, I'm happy to. You know, we're here to kind of work with everyone. We want to make sure we involve you guys.
Y'all should come and do our beach challenge at Sales. You know, you should come to Surf and Sales and come do our beach challenge. We've never had co-founders come and do the beach challenge. That would be cool, where you get all this advice from the entire group about your business model, what's going on. You talk to like 14 or 15 other people. Y'all should come.
When is it again?
November.
November 15th to November 19th, surfandsales.com. Shameless plug.
Send us some more info, honestly. That sounds fun.
All right. I'll send something out to you.
All right, guys.
This has been great. So good to see you both.
Yeah,
cheers. And we'll see everybody next time on the Surf and Sales podcast. Thanks for listening.